The year is 1900. The sun never sets on the British Empire. From India to Africa, from the Caribbean to Canada, from Australia to the Middle East, Britain controls nearly a quarter of the world's land and population. London is the financial capital of the globe. The British pound is the world's reserve currency. British ships dominate the seas. British banks finance global trade, and British industry powers the modern world. At this moment, it seems unthinkable that any nation could surpass Britain economically. And yet, within less than half a century, that dominance would shift. Across the Atlantic, to the United States of America. How did the world's greatest empire lose its economic supremacy, and how did America rise to replace it? This is not a story of sudden collapse. It is a story of transformation and timing. Britain became the world's first industrial superpower during the 18th and early 19th centuries. The Industrial Revolution began on British soil, fueled by coal, iron, innovation, and access to colonial markets. Factories in Manchester and Birmingham produced textiles, machinery, and steel. British railways stretched across continents. British shipping lanes connected global markets. But being first is not the same as remaining first. By the late 19th century, other nations were learning and improving upon Britain's model. Germany industrialized rapidly, and so did the United States. The difference scale. America had vast land, vast natural resources, vast internal markets. And after the Civil War, the United States experienced explosive industrial growth. Steel production soared, railroads connected coast to coast. Oil fields in Pennsylvania and Texas powered new industries. Immigration fueled labor supply. By the early 20th century, the United States was producing more steel than Britain, more coal, more oil, more manufactured goods. Britain still had influence, but America had momentum. Then came World War I. When war erupted in 1914, Britain was drawn into a massive, costly conflict across Europe. To finance the war effort, Britain borrowed heavily, especially from American banks. The United States, initially neutral, became a major supplier of weapons, food, and industrial materials. War transformed America from a debtor nation into a creditor nation. By the end of World War I, Britain owed the United States billions of dollars. Its economy was strained, its industries were worn, its empire was still vast, but increasingly expensive to maintain. Then came the interwar years. The British economy struggled with unemployment and slow growth. Meanwhile, America entered the Roaring '20s, a decade of consumer expansion, technological innovation, and financial growth. Even after the Great Depression hit in 1929, the United States retained structural advantages: a large internal market, abundant resources, and growing industrial capacity. Britain's challenges deepened with World War II. Once again, Britain stood against a powerful European threat. Once again, it financed war at enormous cost. But this time, the financial toll was even heavier. By 1945, Britain was victorious, but exhausted. Its infrastructure damaged, its debt overwhelming, its global influence dependent on American support. During the war, the United States had become the arsenal of democracy, producing vast quantities of military equipment, vehicles, aircraft, and ships. When the war ended, much of Europe lay in ruins. But American industry was intact, even strengthened. In 1944, representatives from allied nations met in New Hampshire to design a new global financial system. The result was the Bretton Woods Agreement. The US dollar became the central currency of international trade, effectively replacing the British pound as the world's reserve currency. Institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank were established, and they were built around American economic leadership. Britain still had an empire, but it was changing. Across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, independence movements gained strength. India gained independence in 1947. Other colonies followed. Maintaining imperial control was no longer economically or politically sustainable. The empire that once fueled Britain's economic reach began to dissolve. Meanwhile, America emerged as a global superpower. Its GDP dwarfed that of most nations. Its military spending shaped international security. Its corporations expanded globally. Hollywood, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, American culture and commerce spread worldwide. Britain did not collapse. It evolved. London remained a major financial center. British influence remained significant in diplomacy, finance, and culture. But economic dominance had clearly shifted. Why? Because the 20th century favored scale, resources, and industrial capacity on a continental level. The United States had space to grow. It had a population boom. It had technological innovation tied closely to private enterprise and research universities. And crucially, it avoided large-scale destruction on its own soil during 2 world wars. Britain, in contrast, bore the weight of global conflict twice. Economic leadership is not permanent. It moves with innovation, with demographics, with geopolitical shifts. Britain's loss of dominance was not simply decline. It was part of a global rebalancing. The empire model of economic power gave way to industrial superpower status, and then to financial and technological dominance. Today, both the United Kingdom and the United States remain influential economies, but the center of gravity shifted in the 20th century. From London to Washington and New York. From imperial networks to industrial mass production and dollar-based finance. History teaches us something important. No economic power remains unchallenged forever. Dominance rises. Dominance shifts. And the global order reshapes itself. The story of Britain and America is not just about rivalry. It is about adaptation, about the cost of war, about innovation, about how economic leadership follows those who can produce, finance, and influence at scale. The sun may have once never set on the British Empire. But in the modern world, economic power shines differently. And understanding that shift helps us better understand our own time. If you found this documentary insightful, take a moment to support the channel. Subscribe for more deep dive historical documentaries. Comment below, what do you think was the single biggest factor in Britain's economic decline? And share this video with someone who loves history, economics, or global politics. Because understanding the past helps us make sense of the future. And there's always more history to uncover.